Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith along with Dave Anderson. I'm in Ave Maria, Florida. Dave's in Dallas, Texas. And if this is the first time listening, Dave, why don't you tell the people what you do in Dallas, Texas?
Well, I coach tennis at Brookhaven Racket Club in Dallas. Is under the umbrella of Invited, which owns hundreds of courts all over the United States, a couple hundred clubs. Been here 32 years as of last Saturday, October 11th. Just kind of manage large staff, kind of live on the court, helping people get better at tennis.
And you've done an amazing job of producing as many college tennis players, you and your staff. GreatBase curriculum at wintertime, school year. We're at Ave Maria University. It's inland from Naples, Florida. Beautiful place with a beautiful mission, helping with the tennis teams. I want to talk about a workshop we have coming up. It's in December 18th through the 20th, 24 hours, 3 8-hour days. And we're telling people it costs $365. It'd be a workshop to help raise funds for the Ave Maria tennis program. $365. And we feel that if one were to attend, it certainly would help them for 365 days. But this might be considered to be a little bit confident, overconfident, arrogant. Tennis's golden growth opportunity. What a name. Tennis golden growth opportunity. Let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about the pillars. And you certainly know the 8 pillars of the GreatBase. You can pick one. I'll pick one to start with. I'll go with Welby Van Horn, the late Welby Van Horn. We certainly dedicated a podcast to Welby and his work, his contributions to tennis. We interviewed Stuart, his son, on our podcast. Mike McLaughlin, who I worked with, another pillar, the late Vic Braden. We're trying to carry the torch from tennis teachers from the past. It just baffles me how there's not enough appreciation for coaches from the past, as well as players. I think that's one great thing about what Laver and Tony Gottschalk have done with the Laver Cup. If you don't understand the history of your subject, Einstein, the guy who invented the bagel. If you don't understand the history of your subject, you don't know your subject. But with Welby, at this upcoming, I know Dave's coming in from Dallas to help me with it. I'd like to bring back the people from the alumni, all these associates from over the years, and build upon it. Maybe we do it for the next 10 years, God willing. But with Welby, the Welby Van Horn balance, it just takes minutes to teach the Welby Van Horn balance system. No rackets, hand on your hips. I was told we made a tape for the Intercollegiate Tennis Association for summer camps. And I was told that some people actually laughed when they saw us on the court with players with no rackets. And we're just going through body balance position. Now, one thing about Welby, he actually, wherever he went, I think at the Choate School, he was at the Boca Hotel when he finally got into the camp business. In between, he was at the Pinehurst Country Club in North Carolina. Wherever he went, he had a 120-foot backboard built. Just fence to fence, the court's 120 feet long. But with Welby, you had to hit the backboard for 30 minutes before your lesson. Give you a 30-minute lesson, that was it. Always just for the most part on ball striking. Because with technique, you have tactics. And then you would stand in front of his pro shop window. It wasn't fair for girls back then. But for the boys, if they weren't doing what they were told in front of that pro shop window, you would smack some balls at them. How you'd lose your job for that. But yeah, we'll get into that during the workshop. Welby Van Horn balance. What comes to your mind with one of the pillars?
Well, I think of Dennis VanderMeer, and I think of brilliance with progressions, when we find ourselves in math number situations with clinics and what have you. I think of group dynamic progression, how incredible he was at those two areas. It was a unique skill set that he certainly had, and he got people enjoying the sport. I mean, he was unbelievable in terms of his tennis. I couldn't imagine him in pickleball. I mean, the guy would probably have the world's largest pickleball program because of how he was. I think that the impact, that he had in those two areas, to me, is just phenomenal.
Dennis VanderMeer, Welby Van Horn, legends of the tennis teaching side. I think of Gonzalez and Laver and Rosewall and Hode. You just go back, and obviously those are legendary players, but legendary teachers. Actually, Welby, he taught Dennis's first wife, Linda, how to play tennis. She was a really good tennis player. So the tennis world is a pretty small place, all the different connections. When I first completed Dennis's tennis university, and I was very fortunate, I know you were part of that, where we hosted that university for 10 years. So Dennis, I asked him at the end of the university, I said, well, we've studied tennis under you. Who else do you recommend? And of course, Dennis, I love Dennis. He's a confident guy. He's like, well, who else would you want to study? You just need to study this, the VanderMeer standard method. And then what he did is he mentioned one person, and he mentioned Welby. And he said, Welby is probably the worst resort teacher in the world, but probably the best junior development coach in the world. And then he went on and said, the first 3 hours, first 3 lessons, you're not going to hit one ball. Welby would stand right next to the student, put him on the service line, stand at the tee, the intersection of the center service line and the sideline. First, there's no balls, just no racket, hands on your hips. But yeah, Dennis, he certainly brought the numbers into it, where Welby, for the most part, he taught one-on-one. He taught one-on-one private lessons, where Dennis then, I remember Dennis saying, which we said about privates, which I really appreciated, is that a lot of times in a private lesson, you're just babysitting. I'd rather give 12 5-minute lessons, but people aren't going to drive across town to, take a 5-minute lesson. Dennis VanderMeer with a whistle, the organization of space, just all the different variables. But you got to make it fun. Make it fun. That's one thing that VanderMeer did so well. I think coming back to Welby, when people see static balance, just in one place, don't you think that's almost extinct?
Yeah, and I feel like people have such limited exposure to other sports, and they're only in the tennis culture. And I mean, I remember playing high school basketball through, and it just, I remember practices where, you're just shadowing patterns, pass the ball, set a pick, do this. And tennis is just instant scrimmage. And I think if you grow up in other sports, especially the higher level you get to in any particular sport, it's just the norm. Doing things in a very slowed down, meticulous manner to get them right. When these NFL wide receivers or tight ends are running a 10-yard slant, they, by the time they turn around, the ball's on them. They have to make their cut at the exact point. And tennis is no different. It's just become, I think, culturally acceptable in our world of teaching, but also in just our world in general, to have it be okay. Mediocrity's become okay. It's almost become the norm, to where it's just, it's really affected the way people look at learning, I think.
My mother in our kitchen growing up, there was a sign, don't accept mediocrity. Here's something that you remember from days gone by when we had this program where you'd get an associate degree in tennis teaching pro management. I would assign people to watch movies. And you remember the wrestling movie Vision Quest?
Oh, yeah. Matthew Modine.
So we're not even 10 days in, and I watched the men's basketball team. I haven't seen the women's basketball team yet. The men's basketball team, and met the coach, talked to him, said, I'd like to have your permission to bring the tennis team over to watch your practice. And it's high intensity. There's focus. It's just professional. And every 2 minutes, sense of urgency. They end with 20 minutes of film, but we show up, and I just told everybody, look straight ahead, get the AirPods out, get your cell phone away, just look straight ahead. If I see you talking, see you giggling, and I said to the players afterwards many things, but I said they're about 500 yards from us, but right now they're 500 miles away. Their level of how they're treating their sport and how we're treating ours. Back to Welby and Dennis, combining the two systems. I hope people can come and join us in Naples in December for those 3 days. This is how the system works for body balance. And then with Dennis, with group dynamics, you can have a kid end up on balance. And if they're hitting the ball well, they're going to end up on balance. So you just know that system, and then now they have a practice partner. And now just how you drop a tennis ball, you're going to actually just hang on to the ball, and there's an art to everything. You don't just toss tennis balls. You're going to drop the ball right at their contact point. Welby was emphatic about making sure that they're hitting away from their body. It's going to be at waist level, hit, hold, slow down, self-evaluate. But yeah, those are two pillars. So if people go through our podcasts, they go through our online content, and I know you and others are putting things up on Instagram all the time. There's a lot of depth, a lot of educational merit to the GreatBase. And basically what it is homework. And back in the 80s, when we were as a group studying tennis, we weren't calling it the GreatBase. But one of our associates from way back then, Richard Hernandez, he said to me one time, tennis needs a GreatBase initiative. Dennis was fortunately inducted in the Tennis Hall of Fame. I know people are still shouting out for Welby to be inducted. Anyway, a bright light will be shined on their work during our workshop. But anything else, Dave? We'll sign off on this one.
Yeah, I just think one thing I would encourage everyone who has any kind of affiliation with the GreatBase, going back all the way to the tennis tech program and beyond. I mean, or if you don't have any, just encourage you to get down there. It's going to be a great 3 days, and then also really try to do some homework in advance to cover tennis intelligence applied, or some of the things that are available online to really prep you. And then I would, just like when you go to the doctor, you have to kind of be your own advocate, write down what you're feeling, your symptoms, this and that. I would make a list of questions that you have in advance, because we tend to forget them. I'd really spend some time prepping for the 3 days so that you can really maximize the experience.
I think another thing is for the enthusiast all the way to the expert. Parents, players, coaches, teachers, administrators. Yeah, there would be a lot of ground covered. And certainly those people that we've been connected with, we certainly can have an open forum, and just have to be you and me talking about what we'd like to see to improve our sport, to improve the growth and welfare of tennis. But that's a shout out for that upcoming workshop, and a shout out for two of our pillars, Welby Van Horn and Dennis VanderMeer. But listeners, Dave, thank you very much.
Yeah. Have a good day.